everybody. Welcome back to our podcast. I am Althea Rain.
I'm Halo Smythe.
And Yuri Inoku.
And we are your hosts for Today Geek. Next thing we got to talk about is Velma again. Velma is getting a season 2. It has been confirmed, despite the fact that it has an absolutely dreadful score on even Rotten Tomatoes on every single platform that it's been reviewed on. IMDb, also atrocious score. But yet somehow they greenlit us season 2.
Even critics are giving it a bad score. Like, this is not a case of like, well, the fans hate it, but the critics love it, so they're just going to keep making it. Like, even critics are giving it a bad score.
Last time we talked about this, I even read from a review written from a guy who liked the She-Ra reboot, who also said this show was just trash. But yet somehow this is getting greenlit for season 2. I don't understand.
Maybe everyone's just scared to fire Mindy Kaling. I don't know. I don't understand.
Like I said, I think it's because they got, even though it has a 7% of audience score, 41% on the, for the critics. I think it's because all the people just hate watched it so much that they gave them the views. And I don't know.
That's actually a really good possibility because it's been great PR for the show. Probably way more people are aware of it because of how much everyone hates it. And we're talking about it right now.
Yes, we are.
So that strategy actually might be a good strategy if you want to make a successful TV show. Just make one that everyone hates, and then they'll hate watch it.
Too bad it didn't work like that for Santa Inc. last year.
Oh God!
I was about to say I think that was the strategy for the Lord of the Rings series on Amazon.
Oh, that's true.
Well, they basically said that they were going to do stuff like that, and like they're doing stuff like that with the Last of Us series. I mean, people are still talking about episode 3. Now, a lot of people might think, well, if you hated episode 3, you're, homophobic and all that. No, I'm not. In episode 3, they focused the entire story on 2 characters that were actually minor characters in the game. Bill and Frank. And their love story. Now, nobody who's ever played the game denies that Bill was gay and that Frank was his lover. But what they did in the show was they took these 2 characters and they completely changed everything fundamentally about them. And that is what people who are true fans of the games are having problems with that episode. And it's still being talked about. And the people who published that episode, who put that episode out, the producers or showrunners or whatever, even said they wanted to trick people into watching a gay love story. Which is strange that you want to have people watch that on a zombie show.
I find the idea that they want to trick people into watching a gay love story like really bizarre and weird. That's like not something I would think a normal person would say. Like, I would find it weird if you even said like, oh, we're gonna make a horror movie, but haha, we're gonna trick you into watching a romantic comedy. Like, I'd be mad about that. Like, why would that be something you'd want to do? Like, we promoted this as a horror movie, and we gave it a title that makes you think it's a horror movie, and we put together a trailer that makes it look like a horror movie, but haha, it's actually a romance movie between straight couples. I would still be upset
if you
because I went to a horror movie.
If you played the actual game, you already know Bill after Frank has been dead for some time. After he's been on his own for possibly almost a decade, I'd say. He's been alone for a long time. And so what you have here is this man who's alone, who's a survivalist, who's very smart, lays traps everywhere, stays out of sight. You don't even see him until he's coming to save you from one of his traps. And he's helping you. Despite the fact that he's being very sarcastic, he's helping you because he owes you a favor. Joel owes Joel a favor. Has constant bickering with Ellie. The first time you see Frank is when you find his hanging corpse. Spoiler alert, I don't care anymore. You find his hanging corpse inside a house after he's already complained about the fact that this individual stole the engine that he was going to get out of that town to find a safer place at some point. So this individual betrayed him, stole something from him, and tried to get away from him. And if you look in the house where you find Frank's body, you find a note where he basically says, "You were stifling me. You were just a downright dick. You're not somebody that I wanted to be with." And then when you show that note to Bill, he said, "Well, if that's how you feel, F you too, Frank." They did not love each other at the end of it anymore. It wasn't
I think I missed that note.
It wasn't some big love story where Frank got sick and died, or however they had it end there in the show. Frank actively betrayed Bill to get away from him. So by changing this story, you not only change Frank at the core of who he was at the end, you change Bill. And that's just scratching the surface of how that episode went.
Well, I know people... Oh, go ahead.
No, go on.
I know people rated the first 2 episodes really good. I didn't even bother watching the show because I kind of had a feeling that it was going to end up like that. Like they were going to do something that was going to piss off the fans of the original show, just like they did in the second game. So it's kind of weird. I wonder. I guess they really were intentionally like bait and switching this to get people to watch like the first 2 episodes. They made them so people would like them. But I had forgotten about... I'm glad you remember like everything about Bill and Frank, because I know exactly who you're talking about in the game now, but you're right. They are like really minor characters. I probably would have forgotten about them if you hadn't just recapped it all for me.
Yeah.
I'll never forget
they need
Bill.
like source material. They need the...
What?
They just need the source material, so they're gonna like they're gonna try to squeeze something out of every minor encounter in the game. So.
But like, you know, the whole thing is, I'll never forget Bill because he was voiced by W. Earl Brown, who's a very good actor in everything that I've seen him in. I love this actor. I mean, he's freaking great. And so I love that about him. And not to mention, my nickname for Bill is Thunder Thighs McGee because anytime you play that game, he runs through every field like a herd of elephants. Like, you go somewhere and all of a sudden you'll see him thunder thighing it right on through. And I'm like, what the hell? It's a good thing the clickers can't hear you doing this, you dope. So I love the character. It's fun to play, especially his section. That's one of my favorite sections in the game. And I've played this game probably 5 or 6 times. But that is not how it happened with Frank. Frank kills himself because he got bit. And he wanted to prevent himself from turning. So he hanged himself before he could turn in the house. And if you find that note, it lays it out for Bill that, no, he didn't love him at the end.
Oh, that's sad. So when does the TV show take place then? Because you said this shows the relationship of Bill and Frank, but in the game, obviously...
It apparently takes place in modern times, despite the fact that the initial game started in 2013 and is supposed to take place 20 years later in 2033. So the original game was released in like 2013, 2014, something like that. 2013, I think,
Mhm.
on PS4 3, and then it was re-released on PS4 2014, I believe. One of those two. And so they have it as if it's modern times, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I know we started off on Velma, but we got way off track with it. But at this point, I'm done with Velma too. So let's. This is our next section, like subverting expectations. We're gonna title this "Subverting Expectations" because this game apparently in the 20-year prior segment, I think it's like supposed to be 2003 or something like that. And then this game like takes off into 2023. And I know that there are some people that are completely ignorant about this with the way that they've done it. I don't know the details on how they've changed some fundamentals, but there have been articles that have come out that have explained how they changed how the fungus spreads. So I'm not sure about that yet, but I know my husband was watching a YouTube video going on about this, and apparently some people are under the impression that it wasn't a fungal infection in the initial game because my husband commented on this video and says, but it was a fungus in the game. And this guy comes on here and basically calls my husband like ignorant about it and says, "What are you
Oh my
talking
gosh.
about? The fungus was never in the first game. They changed that for the show." I'm like, I come in there and I'm like, "Are you freaking stupid? Have you Tell me you haven't played the game without telling me you haven't played the game. It's called cordyceps. There's actually a pamphlet that you can find in the game that outlines how the fungus work and how the fungus spreads all over the brain. You literally have to walk through spores halfway through the game. Like many times, and every time you walk through these spores, which only come from fungus, by the way, only come from fungi, these spores can infect you that way. And the way that they have the clickers looking after a certain time with the mold growing out of them, the way that they have the bloaters looking, all of this indicates fungal infection. It's been in the game since its inception.
Yeah, I mean, they look like they have giant mushrooms growing out of their heads.
No.
So how could you not say? How can you say there isn't fungus? They literally have like giant fungi growing out of their heads.
Well, apparently some people are just stupid. There's no way you can't. Like, in the very first section of the game, before you start actually dealing with any of these clickers or stuff, before you even see, like, a runner or whatever, right after you get outside of the city, you have to put on a mask right away because you're walking through these spores. You can literally see mushrooms growing out of dead people's bodies. You literally see the fungal infection after the fact growing in a room. There's
Yeah.
there's there's no way you can miss it. And if you have,
Yeah.
then it shows me that you've not played the game.
No, probably just read something about the game just to, oh, I'm gonna have some knowledge in Last of Us or some stuff like that.
And
That people, it's weird to me that people who haven't played the games would be interested at all in the show. But I guess they must be counting on that because most people I know who like the game are not watching the TV show.
well, and here's another thing. Most people who have played the game, who like the game, also won't or haven't or hated if they have the part 2. And
Yeah.
there was a beautiful video. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I can link you guys from Game Theorists. Do you guys know who that is?
Mhm. Yeah, Matt Pat.
Yeah, Matt Pat. Yori, do you know who that is?
No, fortunately, no.
I will have to send you a link so you can watch this video. But
Okay.
I've been saying this for years before his video came out on this. I am completely down with what Joel did to save Ellie. At the end, now this is again spoilers. At the end of The Last of Us, Part 1 as it's now being called, but the end of The Last of Us, um, the Fireflies were going to collect all of the samples from Ellie's brain to reverse engineer a vaccine. And I've always said that was the dumbest thing anybody could do. I said, I played it in 2015 for the first time. I said, there's no way this would actually work. First and foremost, if it's growing all over the brain and you only have one person who's immune, wouldn't it be more efficient to grab biopsies of it, let it grow back, and grab another biopsy of it so you can really figure out how it works in the brain while the person is still alive and immune? If you collect all of it off of one person's brain, you are only going to create enough of any kind of a cure or antifungal or whatever it is that you want to create until the sample size, the samples that you have are gone. And then you're up the creek without a paddle and no further way to reverse engineer this thing. That was the first thing. Second thing I said was, it's 2013 in real life, 2014 in real life. We don't have a vaccine for fungal infections. There is no way at present to create a vaccine for fungal diseases. A vaccine only works for viral and bacterial infections. They don't work for fungal infections. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that. I was on a game show type podcast a few years ago where I had this debate with someone, and the question was the most evil uh villain in a video game, and they had picked Joel, and I was adamantly against this idea that Joel was the most evil video game character that ever existed. Because
yeah,
he saved her from being killed. That wasn't an evil. If anything, it was maybe a lawful evil. Maybe you could argue it's lawful evil, but I don't even think it's lawful evil. I think it was probably lawful neutral at best.
Yeah.
Character, but B, I totally agree. I don't understand what killing the one person who's immune to this would actually accomplish.
Well,
I mean, what are they going to do with?
Imagine this. Even today in 2023, there are no vaccines for fungal infections. What do you think they're going to be able to do, let's say 20 years from 2013, with the entire world practically destroyed, no research available, no doctors? 20 years, if you have a doctor that's still alive from apocalypse, you'll be damn lucky, because most of those doctors will have died. Who's teaching new people to be doctors now? How do you have any kind of research going on when you don't have really proper electricity for some of this stuff? You don't have any sort of universal studies that can be done, that can be tracked from one end of the earth to the other. There's no way that you're going to get an a vaccine developed for antifungal disease 20 years after an apocalypse when it didn't exist in 2013. There's just no way, first and foremost.
It doesn't make any sense. So, how are you going to test it?
What kind of quack did they have that was telling Marlene that they were going to be able to reverse engineer a vaccine? What kind of quack was telling them that?
Yeah, it doesn't. It literally makes no sense.
Second, one of my biggest problems with part 2 is where they talk about, well, Ellie, one of her big arguments with Joel was, he didn't give her a choice to make that decision for herself. Maybe I should be playing the clip of Danny forgetting about the Iron Fleet here and say, these people seem to forgot that the Fireflies took her agency away in the first place by not waking her up and asking her, oh, is it okay if we kill you so that we can get the vaccine reverse engineered?
Yeah, it's not like she was conscious at the time, so
they kept her sedated.
Make a decision.
They kept her sedated so they wouldn't have to worry about her possibly saying no to that decision. They actively took her agency away in the first place. So, that being said, I do not agree with, not now, not ever, that the need for the many outweigh the need for the few. I don't agree
Yeah.
with that.
Especially in that circumstance when there's no good evidence that there's actually any benefit for the many. Like
They should have just taken biopsies of it to see if they could reverse engineer something. They could keep her as a guinea pig for the next 10 years, safe and sound.
Yeah, well, you have to be careful about that because even that could cause like brain damage. I don't know. But I would want good evidence. Like if it were me, I'd be like, okay, do you have good evidence? Like tell me, walk me step through step what you're going to do with this stuff once you get it out of my head and potentially brain damage me. I need to know like details, not just oh yeah, we're gonna just like kill you and take your brain. It'll be fine.
There was and I don't really believe that anybody like you're saying. I tell you what, if it had been me in Ellie's position and they told me that, I would have questions. I'm like, isn't there a way that you can collect samples maybe from the bite mark where there seems to be fungal growth there? It should be in my bloodstream if I'm immune to it with my white blood cells, which are attacking this thing that have some sort of natural immunity effects. Why can't you test my blood, test my bite wound, maybe collect samples of not my brain matter, but the fungus that is growing on my brain matter? Why can't we do stuff like that to see if it's possible that we can get a running, I don't know,
Try that
culture?
first. Why don't we just try that before
Because
we
yeah,
cut out my
before we
brain?
just kill me for something that, I mean, and then I would be asking, and if you kill me, how do you know you can continue to keep engineering this vaccine or this whatever it is you've got? Let's call it a cure, for example.
Don't even get me started on that. Like, how are you going to manufacture and distribute this supposed vaccine that you're making in an apocalypse?
Which makes it all the more insidious because knowing the Fireflies and how they operate, you know damn well they were going to hoard that thing and become the big power of the world.
Yeah, because like just look at what happens in real life when truckers in Canada strike. Now, there's been an apocalypse. There's no more gasoline. People are riding around on horses. There's no more electricity. But they're going to mass produce a vaccine and distribute it across, like, let's just be generous and say the United States and not the world, just across the United States. It makes absolutely no sense.
Right.
I don't know why people think Joel is evil. It never made any
that
sense
was
to me.
always my thing, and I'll give them a little bit of credit. Joel probably didn't have like the foresight that we have, the knowledge that we have, or whatever. But something was definitely not clicking in his head. They didn't give her a choice. He was going to take that back and give her the choice and do it. The only thing I don't like about the first game is that he didn't tell her the truth.
Yeah, I
Because
didn't like that. I agree. I didn't like
because
he didn't tell her
what
the
he
truth.
should have done was when she woke up in the car, what he should have done was he should have said, look, they were just going to kill you. And then he should have explained, we don't know if they were going to be able to actually reverse engineer anything. We don't know if they were going to be able to actually create enough to save the entire world, or if they would have only been able to collect enough to save a few people. Would you really have been willing to just let yourself die when they're not even willing to ask you if you're willing to sacrifice yourself for that? I would have been straight up with her. I killed them because they took your agency away. They did not want to ask you or have any sort of kindness to see about this. They're selfish people. And maybe I'm no better than them because I couldn't lose you, but you were the child that I need. I would have said something like that to him because it was absolutely blatantly obvious at that point that he thought of her as his kid.
Well, I always thought that was a really weak excuse. Did you play the second game? I always thought that was a really weak excuse in the second game for
He
her
did
to be
not.
mad at him.
After
Yeah.
I heard the spoiler, the second game. Sorry, I'm not playing that game.
I've
because
seen
they
all of
did
the
him
spoilers
dirty.
to it. I've seen all of the spoilers. I've watched countless of hours of people reviewing it, talking about why it sucked and junk like that. I saw the cutscene where he gets killed, and I think they did him the dirtiest that they could have
Dirty.
ever done.
Yeah.
They did.
So
There's no way. There is no way on God's green earth I'm going to play a game where my character dies that violently and then allow myself to be stuck playing his murderer for hours.
It doesn't make
Nope.
any like, who thought that was a good idea?
Druckmann.
I only played it because it won the accessibility game of the year, and I wanted to see what kind of accessibility features it had. And a couple of other people said, "Well, it's the reviews are overblown." I really liked it, so I gave it a shot. I did play it, but I always thought that that was a really, like, it was almost like they just it was almost like, kind of like you were saying, like Game of Thrones. It's like, well, we need a reason because plot. So we need a reason for Ellie to be mad at Joel because we want to have her separate from him and go do things away from him and not be close to him anymore. So let's think of a reason. Oh, I know. She's mad because he saved her.
Yeah.
It was just because her life could have had meaning, but now it just doesn't have meaning anymore because Joel's had the audacity to save her.
And of
It
course,
just
yeah.
it just feels like a stretch. It just felt very much like a stretch.
There's a video that I'm going to find, and when I put this out, I'm going to link it. I've got to refind this this video. I will link it to you guys. It's a video where the guy in it actually completely rewrites the entirety of The Last of Us 2, and I think what he did was phenomenal. That game would have been something I would have played. Like I said, I'm gonna have to go and find it. But when I do, I'll link it to you guys to watch.
Yeah,
And
I think I know what you're talking
about. But then, of course, because they want to keep milking this cash cow, they completely redo The Last of Us and make it The Last of Us Part 1. First of all, I think that's really stupid to rename it because it's just The Last of Us. But second of all, I'm conflicted about that game. On one hand, I would love to play it to see how beautiful the world is that they've changed it to be. On the other hand, I don't want to play it because I don't ever want to look at the ugly ass faces they've given the characters. I'm going to come out and say it. They did the characters dirty in the remake. They look awful.
Really? I haven't. Yeah, I have no plans in paying for it like a third time.
Like,
so
okay,
I'm not gonna.
if you look at Tess, she has the biggest difference. I think she looked absolutely beautiful in the first iteration of the game, the original. And then if you look at how they've changed her face, okay, they've given her a lot more detail, but they made her cheeks look more sunken in,
older,
decrepit almost like she was on METH. I think they made her look far worse. They did a similar thing with Ellie. I do not like how they made her look either. I do not like what they did to Joel. And despite the fact that there is a lot less detail on the original characters, I will sacrifice all of the beauty of the remake and stick to the original. Not to mention, I actually watched a guy who said now there were some game mechanics that didn't quite match up and were not as good with the remake. That's another video that I could link you guys to and put in the description. But there's one more thing we got to talk about with The Last of Us before we can move on with this. Did you guys know that the actress who played as Tess passed away?
I think I read that recently. Yeah.
Yeah, she
I do
died.
remember hearing that.
She her name was Anne Wersching, and she was only like 45. She's only 45. She died of cancer. She'd been diagnosed in 2020 and kept her diagnosis absolutely private. And she died on the 29th of January this year. So rest in peace. She was a very, very good actress. She was in an episode of Cold Case. She was in an episode of Charmed, going back all the way to Star Trek Enterprise. She's done a lot of things. So yeah, she was even the Borg Queen in Star Trek Picard.
Oh
For
wow.
reading that, yeah.
She was in The Vampire Diaries as Lily Salvatore. Um, Blue Bloods, she was in an episode of that. Main cast of for season 7 and 8 of 24. So, she didn't do a whole lot, but it's still really sad to see that she's passed on. So, rest in peace. On that note, I think I'm over the whole Last of Us thing. I don't want to watch the show. I'm never gonna play. They're coming out. I think they're coming out with a part 3. I'm never gonna touch that.
I'm not paying for HBO Max. Like after
After the
Santa
fiasco
Inc.,
of having to do
after
the
Santa Inc., after Velma, I don't know.
after
Sure.
Christmas Story Christmas.
Game of Thrones.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh
Don't forget
God,
Game of Thrones.
season 8 was atrocious of that. It made me regret ever having watched the show.
I can't go back and watch it. I've thought a couple times I'll go back and watch Game of Thrones.
Sorry, I've never
and I
watched a
can't.
single. I've never watched Game of Thrones ever.
Don't waste your time. It's so
Oh,
good
no,
in
no.
the first,
The first 5
seasons.
the first 5 seasons were great. I love the first 5 seasons. Season 6 was okay, and season 7 was where it really started to fall apart because you could see them rushing things and starting things that you knew they were not going to finish. Season 5 ends with the books, basically. The books have not gone past season 5 yet. And so they were making crap up as they went. And all of this is in the name of subverting expectations. I don't know why we got into a trend where subverting expectations needs to be the thing that we do.
I think it started with like J.J. Abrams and his stuff being like his stupid mystery box thing, and his movies being so successful. I think J.J. Abrams is really the one who started that. Like, oh yes, you must build a mystery and then subvert expectations when the mystery box is opened.
Well, when it's done well, it's fine. If you take the Star Trek movies, for example, okay, with J.J. Abrams, the original Star Trek movies, in The Wrath of Khan, at the end of The Wrath of Khan, you had Spock die in an absolute extreme radiated area. Extreme. And he died on the other side of the glass, and you see him hold his hand up to the glass, and Kirk has his send-off with him. And then it just absolutely is past pissed with Khan.
Mhm.
So you have that. A really well done way that they subverted expectations was by having it be Kirk in the 2009 sequel of that, where you had Cumberbatch as Khan. It was actually Kirk that dies in this one instead of Spock. Everybody was expecting Spock to be the one to die because he died in the second movie. In the original second movie, I was expecting Spock to die. I knew at that point that Spock had died, And then it's Kirk. Nobody's expected that. That was a good way to subvert expectations.
Yeah, people got emotional about that. Like that was like a big deal.
And
so
I know some people might say, yeah, but it didn't even have an emotional payoff because he comes right back. Well, you know what? So did Spock. Spock came back in Search of Spock.
He came back, yeah.
They've been doing that since the 1970s. Spock came back. So don't tell me that you needed an emotional payoff out of that it meant nothing because he comes back. Spock came back. So
yeah, and people definitely got emotional about that. I know because I went to the movies to watch people. I went to the movies with people to watch it in the movie theater, and like everyone was like super emotional. Everyone I was with was like super emotional that they had reversed it so that Kurt died. Like it was like a really good payoff.
I loved it.
Subverting expectations.
I loved that. That's a successful subverting expectations example because nobody expected it. we all expected it to be Spock, and suddenly it was not Spock. That is a good example of it. What is not a good example of it is everybody expecting Jon Snow to be going up against the White Walker King, or the Night King, or whatever he was. I can't remember.
Yeah, the Night King, yeah.
It was set up from basically the inception of the first season all the way to the 8th season. It had to happen that way. And then suddenly you see Arya coming out of nowhere. Like, it's not even explained how she got that far when you had the dragon actively hunting Jon Snow. How would she have gotten there? There's no reason for that to have worked. And why were they dealing with that in the way that they did so much to subvert expectations? Like, how did Dany forget about the fleet when they just had her thinking about the fleet in the previous one? They had discussions about the fleet. There's no way that her dragon should have died to the fleet in that episode. There's no way that any of this should have been done just to subvert expectations on our behalf.
Yeah, well, it's like, so there's a difference between like subverting expectations in like a way that it has continuity with the story, and then completely breaking continuity with
Just
the
for
story.
the sake of breaking continuity.
Just for the sake of subverting expectations, basically.
Yeah.
So that would be...
If you're going to subvert expectations, you have to make it make sense. And you have
Exactly.
to make it... You have to... Like, if they... Okay, a good way that they could have subverted expectations for the show, for example, is if they had been setting Arya up to be possibly... Like, if they had said... Okay, here would have been a good way. Because what they were setting Arya up for was to get vengeance on her list of people. There was never any setup that would have placed her in the position where she could have gone after the Night King herself. So what they could have done, if they were planning on having her or somebody else or anybody other than Jon Snow to go after the Night King, they could have had multiple characters being set up to potentially do the thing throughout the rest of the show.
Like, have us all confused about who could potentially be Azor Ahai.
Right. Nobody should know. If you're going to make it a surprise, and you want people to, you want it to be the people that the one that you don't suspect or expect, I should say. Set it up where it could be multiple people throughout the entire series. But they did none of that. It's like introducing. It's like when they introduced. Oh God, we're gonna go into this one. It's like introducing the Godchild in Mass Effect 3 in the last 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't played Mass Effect 3, so I don't know that reference.
I don't know.
Okay, you guys don't know. You guys,
I have to explain it. You might have to explain it for audience too.
Okay, spoiler alert, if you don't want to know about Mass Effect 3, click off now. 3, 2, 1. Okay, now you're in it. So, the Mass Effect series really was trying to set up a new precedent where you choose your story by, one, choosing who you wanted to play as, whether you wanted the male Shep or the female Shepherd. I loved how they did that. They gave you complete agency over a lot of different choices. Like, in the first game, you chose which character lived or died. Did you choose? Would you have chosen the male co-worker of yours, male crewmate, or the female crewmate, Ashley, or I can't remember what's his name? Would you have chosen to allow Rex? I think it was Rex. One of the male Krogans, I think they're called. Oh, please forgive me if I'm getting these names wrong. It's been a while since I've played these games. The races and the character names. I am really bad with those things, even if I've played it several times. But you make choices throughout the game that actively impact how your next game goes. So like if you play Mass Effect 1 and you let Ashley die, in Mass Effect 2, you upload your save file from Mass Effect 1. This imports your character creation, your character design. This imports all of the choices that you made that changed the fundamental elements of the game. So, if you play Mass Effect 2, having let Ashley be the one to die, Ashley's dead in this game. And you get the other character. If Rex dies in this game, you get a different character of his race that comes in that is in his role as the head, the king, or whatever leader role that is his planet. If you let the Rachni Queen die, you get a different Rachni Queen that will have very different consequences for your character. All these choices actually change how your game works. And 3 should have been the ultimate one. They promised us like 15 different endings or something like that. They promised us 15 endings. What we got was slightly different variations of ultimately 3 endings.
It's really crappy.
And none of your choices really matter at the very tail end of any of it. None of your choices. They completely decimate it. It makes it completely meaningless. Everything you did in the previous 2 games. And how they
that really sucks.
And how
especially
they
we put a lot of time into the game. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I played that game multiple times, especially the second game, because I absolutely love the second game. I love the choices in the second game. I love the Inception. I love every part of Mass Effect 2. I've played these games a number of times. And then Mass Effect 3 comes out. And I get to the end sequence where I find out that all of this has been created, or all of this has been done because this godchild, this like visually looks like a human child, but is like omniscient and has the answer for everything, all life's questions. Like, it's not 42. And tells you can either do option A or option B. Or something like that. Or I think there was an option C. There's limited choices on what you can do at the end. And this godchild that has never been present in any of the previous games subverts all your expectations, and this is what you're left with.
Just like not better than what you were anticipating.
No. Like,
yeah.
who the hell is this? Why the hell are they only introducing this character after 3 games in the last 5 minutes of the game when none of your choices can make a difference anymore?
Yeah, I thought you were setting that up as like a hypothetical. I didn't realize that was what they actually did.
That is what they actually
did. Wow.
That is what they actually did. There is a reason why the outcry and backlash was so bad that even EA and BioWare had to go back and amend it to add a sort of epilogue.
Oh, wow.
It was so bad that everybody hated it for a while. There's a reason why it took them so long to put out the next one, which was a game I'm never going to play. I'm never going to play Andromeda. Never. Thank you, Sarkeesian, for that one.
Yeah, I do remember when Andromeda came out, like everybody was like, man, this is really terrible. And like, I was like, that's weird because I thought the Mass Effect games were supposed to be really good, but
they were until they let Anita Sarkeesian into the studios.
Yeah, still not sure how people like her get people to give them money.
I don't know.
Get people to give them money. Like, here and tell us stupid stuff, and we'll give you money.
I don't know, but this is where it really began for like games and stuff, and the subverting expectations thing. And I'm telling you, as a gamer, I'm just so damn tired of the subverting expectations. Can we just go back and make our games great again? Please?
Yeah, I'm trying to, like, think of some like examples of where subverting expectations like worked really well, and I walked away like amazed. I know those stories are out there, but there's so many where they tried to subvert expectations that it was bad that I can't even think of the good examples.
Well, I gave one great example, you know, but
Yeah,
that's just one example among all of the bad ones. I can tell you, we've talked about all of the games that just poorly executed a subversion of expectations. I just want a game that I can enjoy from start to finish at this point. I don't want my expectations subverted anymore. I don't care if it's predictable. I myself am not one to care about the spoilers. I actively seek the spoilers out, and if that makes the end of the game good, then I go back and I play it anyway. If it's going to be bad, why would I waste my time? This is what happened with Sweeney Todd. I won't watch the movie because I hate how it ends. And I got halfway through it before I decided, oh no, I gotta finish reading this before I even finish watching this, because if this is gonna go as badly as I'm thinking it's gonna go, I'm going to hate life for like the next 2 days. So I went and I read the rest of Sweeney Todd's synopsis. I'm like, nope, I'm out.
yeah. I don't think we have to go deep into it, but I think it's kind of the same thing with Horizon Forbidden West. Like they
Yeah,
did a lot of that in Horizon Forbidden West, and it does make you kind of hate your life for spending 40 plus hours playing. Because this is not like a movie where you play for like 3 hours, you watch for 3 hours, and then you're done. People actively play these games for 20, 40, 60 hours, and then only to find out at the very end that they screwed up the ending, and now we hate the game.
let me
But
see
that's how
if
I
I
feel
can.
about Game of Thrones. Like, that's what I was going to say about Game of Thrones. Like, I wouldn't watch it. I can't go back and rewatch it. I thought about just going back and rewatching the first 5 seasons. I can't, because I know how it ends, and it ends so badly that it ruins the entire beginning first 5 seasons
Let me tell you how many
of the
hours I've put
show.
into Mass Effect. The first Mass Effect game I've put in 90 hours. The second Mass Effect game I played twice. Okay. Once on Steam, once on my Xbox 360. Oh no, PlayStation 3. So I don't have my PlayStation 3 details, but I am going to just double the hours that I've put in on Steam, because I can imagine it was probably about the same. 99 hours on Steam.
It's like 200 hours altogether, probably.
Probably close to 200, maybe 250 hours, because I know I did all of the extra stuff. So let's round it out to about 250 hours for Mass Effect 2, another 90 hours for Mass Effect 1, and probably another 100 hours into Mass Effect 3, only to find the Godchild. So 100, 200, 300, 450 hours into those 3 games. I'm going to round it out. 450 hours into the Mass Effect franchise. Only to...
Only,
Huh?
I was just going to say the same thing, I think. You go ahead.
Only to find out about a Godchild in the last 5 minutes. That gives me one ending out of 3 very similar endings.
Yeah, basically only to find out, like, in the third game that you don't like it anymore. Which is how I feel about Game of Thrones. Like, spent like dozens of hours watching the TV show, only to find out in the last season I don't like the show.
This is why I read spoilers nowadays before I invest in anything.
Yeah, it's a shame you have to do that though, because that,
I shouldn't
like,
have to,
defeats
because
the
they shouldn't be
purpose.
subverting our expectations that poorly. Don't. If you are a developer, if you are a person who has some kind of power into writing a book, producing a show, movie, any of this, please, for the love of God. Think about the time that people are going to put into this and do them a solid and not do them so dirty.
Yeah, we have versions. I'm gonna coin a term right now. We have subversion fatigue. We're tired of having our expectations subverted, like
Yeah.
on everything.
Yeah.
Like even like just like okay, even like with Velma, what is it about? It's about subverting the expectations. Now Shaggy's not a stoner; he's a cool black guy.
And apparently
Expectations
Scooby
subverted.
And now apparently Scooby is some female that Shaggy's gonna get with.
Yeah, why not? It will subvert your expectations.
Yori, tell us about Shaggy and Scooby. What you were reading about that.
No, I was reading the whole that they got into confirmed to be new development, but Norville, I saw various like videos or pictures of Norville with a female character, and everyone is just saying that that is Scooby. Um, Something Scooby with an eye. I have to double check on that one, but I think I can send you the picture I saw of her.
So is Scooby still a dog?
No.
No,
There is no dog in this one. There is no Scooby Doo.
there's no Scooby Doo.
What? There's no Scooby Doo in Scooby? In Scooby Doo?
Well, that's why it's
It's
called
Velma.
Velma.
Because
Fair enough.
Scooby's gone.
They-
Gone with the wind.
What I think their excuse for not including Scooby Doo in it was something along the lines of oh god, what was it? Something along the lines of how this isn't a kid's show anymore, so you don't need a talking dog anymore. But if this isn't a kid's show anymore, then why are you doing this in the first place? Because it's supposed to be a kid's show.
I mean, I should have known this with the name of the title. It is called Velma. Like, no one ever watched the show for Velma. Like, Velma was at best a side character. I don't even, she's barely main cast.
Oh, the other one is Gigi. I'm sorry. That's the name of the character that everybody's saying is female Scooby Doo.
Yeah, well, you know what?
And
At
a
this
lot
point,
of
I won't be surprised if they did it. I mean, they changed Shaggy's name back to Norville.
yeah. Like one of the comments is I can't get over the people thought Gigi was going to be a gender swap species of Scooby, but this is just like I don't know. I guess is that everybody's just expecting Scooby. Even though fans of Scooby Doo hate Velma so much, I guess they are trying to make it I don't know, work.
Is that a thing that, like, Scooby Doo fans hate Velma?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's news to me if that's the case. I mean, I was never a big Velma fan. I always thought it was weird that, like, Velma was getting a show.
Like the show
Oh, they hate
Velma.
the show Velma.
Yeah,
I thought you
yeah.
meant the character Velma. See
Oh,
how
no.
confusing that is?
No,
Yeah.
no. Velma as a character, I even that was one of my how do you say costumes in Halloween. I've done it Velma twice. And it's just it's a nice character. She's a smart character.
She's admirable. I've always liked Velma.
Yeah, like and then this show just like I'm sorry, but she just
We're gonna take
shitted
that and
on
just
her.
ram it up right your butt, just like genital jousting.
Yes,
No,
because
I never like. I mean,
and I
always
don't
liked
care.
Scooby.
But that's the thing. I don't care about her. I don't care about the race. I don't care any of that. They screwed up every single character. Their personalities were amazing each on its own. Like Freddy was a jock, but he was very charismatic and he got along with everybody. He was friends with them. Like like and he was the leader. He was the one who came up with the plans along with Velma. That means that Freddy was a smart guy just like Velma. Although not as smart as Velma, but hey,
Yeah.
he can do stuff. And Daphne, like, I know that Daphne didn't have that many qualities. I mean, she was the pretty girl, that's fine. But we got a little aimed at on a pup named Scooby Doo when we had her. Okay, she's the little rich kid, and the butler was doing everything for her back in that TV series. But like, she was still humble, and she, in a way, that she was friends with that crazy group, you know. Um, so I don't know. She just she just ruined some perfectly good characters just to prove a point or just to make her point go across. And by that she should have just done an original story with original characters and not screw something up.
Get this, like, why there's so, like, this big push to, like, remake things when you're clearly not wanting to actually remake the thing. You're trying to make
No, if
your
you're
own thing and, like, just capitalize
just
on
create
the
your
IP.
it's like right now. Um I I'm waiting for you know that they're changing certain aspects on superheroes and all that. I'm still waiting for Static Shock like as a movie. I would definitely watch it, but they're just trying to change other superheroes into different whatever just to
Yeah.
make it diverse, and that's fine, whatever. But I'm waiting for the original ones, the original superheroes, and I don't get why Hollywood just keeps
Changing the
the good
same
stuff.
superheroes over and
Yeah,
over again.
yeah. I don't need another Batman uh spin-off again. Like how many times has Batman been done? Like 4 times? 5 times?
Let me see, there's Adam West, then there was Tim Burton's Batman.
Michael Keaton, Val
Mike,
Kilmer,
yeah,
George Clooney, um what was the name of this guy? Dark Knight.
I
his
don't
name
know.
too. There's the Dark Knight series.
Yes, the
Christian
Dark
Bale.
Knight series.
Yeah, Christian
Christian
Bale,
Bale.
yeah.
And then they messed up with that ending with the freaking cop that's helping
And
him
let's
in the
not talk
last
about
one.
what they did to the character of Bane in that
Oh
movie.
god. Oh god.
Oh, he's supposed to be like luchador stuff from South America.
But
Really?
no.
See, I didn't even know that.
Yes,
Yes, if you watch
that's why.
anything from like the animated series, or if you've ever played even the Arkham games, okay? If you play the Arkham games, he is from South America. He wears a luchador mask.
You're
That
Yeah.
right,
is
because I haven't
Bane.
played the. Yeah, no, you're right. He does. I forgot about that, but he does wear the, like,
Even though
luchador
they
mask.
screwed up Batman and Robin so atrociously, at
Oh
least they
my
got
god.
his character looking right. Maybe they screwed him up completely, but when he was on the Bane, at least he looked appropriate. And that's saying something because that entire movie is screwed up Batman and Robin. It's really bad.
I mean, they added a lot of things that did appear in the comics, but like god, that ending part, like
I really wish. Spoiler alert for the Arkham series, if anybody hasn't watched it yet, but I really wish they had, instead of doing all that Suicide Squad crap that was, like, terrible, really wish they had taken the story from Arkham. There's like a very small subplot in Arkham, and you
Oh
don't
yeah.
even notice it. You don't even notice it if you don't like go do everything in the game and go do the DLCs, where basically it implies that Harley Quinn was pregnant and she got in a fight with Batman and had a miscarriage. And I really wish they had taken that plot and turned that into a movie, because I would watch that movie.
But there's another one, like in the comics, Harley did had a child, and she sent it to live with her own sister because she knew that obviously the life that she was living with Mr. J, like she calls him and everything, um, wouldn't be good for the baby. So
That
Harley Quinn has a very good storyline, and they just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why they picked Suicide Squad to be like the thing they're gonna follow. I guess because they could cram as many cool characters into it as possible.
I
Because
wouldn't
But-
the
exactly
villains.
call Jared Leto's Joker cool.
Well, yeah, well, they
Because-
thought they were gonna cram as many cool characters into his plot. Poor Jared Leto. I feel
I
bad
think
for him.
He's failed
But
in
I-
a lot. He's either very successful in his movie. Have you noticed that? He either has a hit or he actually completely bombs it. There's no mediocre in between. It's either really great or absolutely abhorrent.
Yeah. it's
Look at
true.
Morbius.
And looking
Yeah.
at that, ew.
Yeah, no.
But the
That's
thing
his
is-
trend.
But that's the thing. I think right now what they are trying to do is like, oh, let's put the villains in the spotlight and let's make you try to feel bad about them being villains, or you have to understand why they're villains. Like society is the one that disrupted them. It's
And
not because
that is a problem with how we are viewing mental illness at the moment. If you
Exactly.
notice, all of these bad guys that they are glorifying or whatever, they all have mental illnesses. And then you're putting it down as they all have mental illnesses.
Mhm.
So in one way you're
Why
trying to
can't they
glorify
just
it.
be bad?
In one way you're trying to glorify mental illness, but in the same breath, because you're trying to give mental illness a stage on the platform, but then in the same breath you're vilifying it completely. Like everybody who's bad is bad because of a mental illness. Like look at what they did with Rob Zombie's Halloween. God, I hate that movie so much.
I can't watch that. I did not watch it.
Okay, in the 1978 original version, in the very opening scene of Halloween, you've got little 6-year-old Michael Myers who's looking at his sister and her boyfriend. Now, there's a very big theory that I have that I'm sure is shared by many, but I want to talk about it someday. That is not today. But he goes up and then he stabs her repeatedly over and over and over after putting on a clown mask. And then he walks outside and in a daze, just holding this knife, and his parents are like, "Michael!" And the next thing you know, if you're not watching if you're watching the theatrical release, again, another topic for another day, but there were two different releases. They added some scenes for the TV version of him in the mental institution. But if you're watching the theatrical release that doesn't have that additional content, it goes straight from the end of that to you're talking about the present day, or at that time present day 1970s, 1978. 15 years later, you've got these scenes going on introducing the main protagonist, Laurie. You've got them talking about transporting Michael, and you start off the story, and there's no reason or rhyme or description, anything that shows you why he might be the way he is. Are you thinking it could be a mental illness? No, nobody says anything. Do you think it could be demonic possession? Nobody says anything. It's not until the sequel in 1981 where they talk about Samhain, and pronounce it very badly as Sam Hain. Okay, it's Samhain. I know. They pronounce it Sam Hain in that movie. Donald Pleasant says Sam Hain.
Sam Hain.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Anyway, I digress. They are believing it to be some sort of ritual related to Samhain, right? And it's barely a descriptor of why he might be the way he is, but that doesn't really, give any concrete evidence that is a demonic possession or anything. And then they started trying to explain him with the cult of Thorn and all that in 4, 5, and 6. I hate that timeline. And then in H20 in 1998, they came out with the 20 years later movie. And again, they don't go into describing why he does what he does. They cut out all of the stuff that tried to give him reasons for it and just go back to classic slasher, right? Then you have 2007 Rob Zombie's version. I tried so hard to watch this one. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. I made it halfway through before I decided to say I can't do this anymore, and I've never seen it again. They put him in a white trash family. I'm going
Of course
to
they did. Of course they did.
I'm going to make
family.
this disclaimer right now. I do not believe that everybody who lives in trailer park or the stereotypical white trash family, I do not believe that they're white trash. I'm using the stereotypical term for a family that is completely dysfunctional, lives in a really poor neighborhood or a really low income, or maybe has a job as a stripper, a deadbeat dad. I'm describing what stereotype terminology of a white trash family is like, okay?
We're describing we're inferring what we think the creators think about people who live in trailer parks.
Thank you. Though they're technically not in a trailer park, they definitely behaved like you would think they lived in a trailer park. Because the dad is laid up with like a broken arm or something. Every other word out of his mouth is F this, F that. I don't even speak quite like that. This guy puts me to shame on my language. Calling even his own wife names, his own stepdaughter names. Meanwhile, the mother of the family is the only one making money. She's like a stripper or something. The teenage daughter is like a slut or something. This is how they depicted her. The entire family is just, you wish them death because they are not good people. You would have no sympathy for these people if Michael got up and just stabbed this guy in the heart. You would not have sympathy for him. You'd sympathize with Michael and cheer him on, which completely defeats the purpose of a scary movie where you're supposed to not cheer on the villain.
And generally, you're supposed to identify with people who are like getting murdered, so you're scared because you want to watch.
Because they're supposed to be relatable. This is why I love Laurie Strode, the original one. But even Laurie, Lindsay, and Annie in this one are not people that I would relate to or cheer for. Actually, I was laughing at one point. I'm not going to get into that. Let's just say that he hacks and slash at Annie's tits because she was running around with them showing. I'm just going to leave it there. Anyway, I digress. But the way that they portray little Michael, it seems as though he's had a psychotic break. And when you see him going into the clinic, they focus like almost half the movie on his time in the mental hospital. Like, despite 15 years having passed, with him in a tiny room, sitting there all day painting masks because he's got some sort of weird obsession with masks in this one, he looks like a very...
Explain it. How else do you explain him wearing a mask other than he's obsessed with them?
But he never, for 15 years, he was catatonic in the original. He didn't move for 15 years. And he wasn't necessarily obsessed with masks themselves. He had a total of 2 masks.
Oh no, that's my point. I'm being sarcastic. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, you
Yeah.
don't have to be obsessed with masks to wear
Exactly.
masks.
Exactly.
That's my point.
Yeah, exactly. So, in this one, despite the fact that he was sitting in a room painting masks for 15 years, he looks like he's a wrestler. They have him having the body build of a muscular wrestler.
Well,
Doesn't make any sense to me.
just believe it because just believe it because. So.
And he's got this he's in a mental institution painting masks as if he's got a clear mental issue. They made it about mental illness in this. Again. So they subvert our expectations with how they run every aspect of this. And I'll tell you right now, Rob Zombie does not know how to do script lines for teenage girls because they talk like him.
They talk like they're Rob Zombie. I gotta say, I like Rob Zombie's original movies. I think the movies he makes that are originals are really good. But all the remakes he's made, and some of the movies he's made that are originals, but you can tell they're actually remakes, are not so good. Like he made a movie very similar to Suspiria. It's very obviously was intended to be like a remake of Suspiria, but maybe he couldn't get the IP. So he just called it something else. It was very obviously supposed to be a remake or very close, like spiritual sequel to or a spiritual remake of Suspiria. It's so bad. It's so bad. But then I really like his original movies. I think they're good. He should probably just do that and stop remaking things.
But it's like that was probably one of the first times when they started trying to subvert expectations because he wanted to get and I know we talked about remakes on a different segment when we were talking about when Yori and I were talking about Harry Potter remaking their movie for Harry Potter. We were talking about remakes in general, and I don't really like them. I said it in that one, and I'll say it again. Remakes. The point of a remake is to either you think there was something problematic with the original in which you want to make it better. So why would you shot for shot it, like let's say Psycho, or or you're going to make it completely different, in which case why don't you make your own original movie instead of calling it by the same name that a different movie was. Like if he wanted to do something similar to Halloween, he could have done something different that focused and changed the characters the way they were. It didn't have to be a remake of Halloween, but they wanted the IP. And they wanted to subvert expectations because remakes. So it all comes back to what you said. We have subversion fatigue. We are fatigued of the subversion of expectations. Can we just go back to some stuff that you can kind of try to predict?
Yeah, I know we complained about that a lot, but we'd really like it back now. We're sorry we complained.
Yeah, I'll take a predictable movie over subversion of expectations any day now.
So people did used to complain about that a lot. People used to say, "Oh, it's just such a predictable movie." Like I would welcome a predictable, like if you're gonna give me like 7 seasons of a TV show, yeah, give me a little bit of a predictable ending, and don't completely change the ending and make it like not make sense at the end. Just not to be predictable. Tired of that. Thanks for geeking out with us this week.
If you enjoy our content, please like, share, and subscribe.
Stay tuned for our next segment.
Bye.
Bye.